I kind of do expect that they're going to find some transaction this summer to beef up the point guard position. And Tim Conley, every time we think he's going to zag, he zigs.
Yep.
I mean, if it's a point guard that you and I haven't thought of, like obviously the free agent market right now is really bad, but if it's a point guard, like I can't believe he got that guy. I think that would help kind of reignite and juice up what we think about this team, because again, they still have a ton of talent. And are they up to speed right now with like what the Rockets did, who have seemed to kind of go all in for this timeline, or what the Nuggets have been killing it with a former Timberwolves front office member now running their show. But outside of maybe OKC, I'm curious what you think about this. Outside of OKC, Houston, and Denver, the Wolves haven't done much to move themselves forward, but I don't think they've done much to move themselves back. Like I kind of have them fourth in my Western Conference power rankings just off the top of my head, because did the Lakers, Clippers, Warriors, Kings, did any of those teams really get better? So maybe the Wolves are just trying to be a hold right now in the stock game before buy or sell, and waiting for that moment to kind of invest into what I still think, and I know you agree, that point guard thing. I believe in Rob, but they still need another guy. Like they need another athlete next to Ant. I think the days of like the Ricky Rubio, D'Angelo Russell, older Mike Conley, older floor general have gone away. I think they need some real juice next to Ant in the backcourt.
And I think people were thinking of like a Kobe White or a Colin Sexton. And of course, I think a lot of Wolves fans were heartbroken when they saw the package that Colin Sexton got dealt for.
Right.
Adding a second to get Yusuf Nurkic. That was definitely, a head scratcher. And by the way, like fourth power side tangent, I think that's another effect of the CBA. Low-level starters making starter money getting dumped for nothing. I think we kind of saw that. Like Clarkson got cut. DeAndre Ayton got cut. Those assets are like untradeable right now. But the West, it's so interesting. Like I think I'm growing on the idea of, I saw a report that the Wizards are considering signing and trading Malcolm Brogdon. And if I woke up tomorrow and I'm like, okay, so Minnesota maybe use a little bit of that exception, and they sign him on a 1-year $7, staying under the second apron, and there he is. That's a point guard who can, provide some optionality. I'll be really happy about that. Until they get a point guard, I can't put them in that top tier in the Western Conference, not because I lack faith in Rob Dillingham, but to put all the pressure on a 20-year-old kid when we see Conley's evident regression. I love Conley, but that's scary for me.
And I want them to, they still have a roster spot. They still have multiple contracts that they can, I think even Julius, once he signs, is like eligible to be traded. So they still have a lot of flexibility. And I think continuity and flexibility are like the two pillars of not only this front office, but probably this new ownership group. They believe in the continuity because it's paid off for them, but they also don't want to be, again, one of these teams that is having to use assets to get off of assets, because that's like when you have kind of screwed yourself in the NBA. So the point guard thing I keep harping about is I want a point guard, but it is kind of a fine line, right? Because if you go out and you get, if they find a way to go get a De'Aaron Fox or something, like that's really exciting. But now you're back to like very few minutes for Rob Dillingham, or maybe Rob's even in a hypothetical trade. So like the Colin Sexton thing made a lot of sense, but the Brogdon one seems a little smarter to me, because he could play in spots, he could play alongside Rob, but you did invest a lottery pick and like future draft capital in Rob Dillingham. And yeah, he's small and, he needs to get a little bigger, but I think at some point you do kind of got to rip the Band-Aid off and maybe not worry about grinding out wins. I mean, the West was weird last year. Maybe the West will always be weird, but a 6th seed Minnesota Timberwolves did make the Western Conference Finals. I'm not sure how important home court advantage is. Obviously, the Thunder used it to their advantage to beat the Nuggets in 7, but I just have kind of come around to in 2025, I want my team to be the best they can be come playoff time. I don't really care about seeding. And I think at some point, man, you just got to take the training wheels off Rob and be like, hey, sink or swim. Should they have done that more last year? Yes, but now might be the time, because again, like, are you going to be way more inclined to buy season tickets if Malcolm Brogdon is added to the roster? Probably
Only
not.
For the sickos. Only for the sickos.
This needs to be the young guys, again, should have played more, and that was my biggest gripe last year. But, to Finch's case, they did win a bunch of games and they made another run. But you got young guys on this team that we're all really excited about, not just traditionally as fans, how we're like, oh, Alexei Shved, I don't know anything about him, but he seems sweet. Like these young guys, you have Terrence Shannon Jr., who clearly showed he's a real guy. Jalen Clark was all world defense in college. And then Rob comes from Kentucky, man. Like I will bet on Kentucky players being good in the league. So it's going to be a fascinating next couple months. And again, it ties back to the summer league thing of I want to see Terrence, I want to see Jalen, I want to see the young centers, but I'm tuning in every game to watch what Rob Dillingham can do, because if the best thing, and this sucks for you and I, because I know you have like a residency in Vegas in July, but Rob Dillingham only playing like 2 summer league games would be the best. Like if he just comes out and he's like, oh my God, he had 28 and 12. We should shut him down because we don't want him to get hurt. That would be like the best case scenario for Rob, is to just show out for a couple of games and then let his teammates kind of have the rest of the summer.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Rob Dillingham, we saw it with like Jabari Smith a couple of years ago. We saw Brandon Miller. They just walked in, they light crap up, and then they're just done for 2 games. Like if Rob Dillingham could do that, I think we're all feeling incredible. And definitely to make a cross sports comparison. If Rob Dillingham is JJ McCarthy, let's just say this hypothetical, right? JJ McCarthy, redshirt first year. I know McCarthy was hurt year 1, but redshirt year 1 for both. And then you get a quarterback who's not going to threaten him, right? Sam Darnold, if McCarthy's healthy, if McCarthy's good enough, he's going to play over Darnold. But Darnold's also good enough where there's less pressure for McCarthy to play if he wasn't ready. Like Rob Dillingham, if you have a Malcolm Brogdon, that's your Sam Darnold right there. Somebody who is good enough to start. And if it works, great. If you're contending with Brogdon, great. But ideally, Rob Dillingham shows he's better than Malcolm Brogdon year 2, and then he's the starting point guard. I feel like that would be the best case, because I think you look at the stats, how he did year 1. I think we all got a bad taste in our mouths a little bit just after the Utah game when the game was super easy, then suddenly it was really hard. But I do think there's a world where it's like, well, this is actually Kemba Walker or Darius Garland. And I think if that's the case, then we're talking about this team in a whole new context.
If you're watching on YouTube right now, like you can see like disdain in my face, and it's not because I hate that take. It's that I'm pretty upset that I never thought of it myself, because it is pretty much, again, you don't have to love the front court of Julius, Nas, and Rudy, and maybe you think there's a little lack of spacing there and stuff, and I get all that, but at the end of the day, like this is pretty much a roster that if you plug in the right point guard is really good and really dynamic and has a ton of athleticism, hopefully enough shooting. But I'm with you on that. And like to the Vikings point, but this is again the threading of the needle. If we both believe in JJ McCarthy, but if JJ McCarthy struggles or he's not able to go from walking to sprinting right away, the rest of the roster, it's like, well, we're ready to sprint, right? Like you have one of the best wide receiving cores in the league in with Addison and Jefferson, and you have all these running backs, and your offensive line is top 5. So as a front office, you're like, well, we need this guy to be able to sprint on week 1, game 1. And that's probably what they're worried about with Rob a little bit. I've seen some people being like, Rob should start. I don't hate that early in the season, but if it's really rough, same with McCarthy, right, man? Like you can't then sit him. So this summer league, these training camps, all this summer for both of those franchises are going to be really big, because if everything else around these guys is kind of ready to win right now, like I think a Vikings fan would say the rest of the roster, defense, offense, whatever, is ready to win. But the most important position, the quarterback, we don't know. I don't know if Rob's the most important position or guy on this team, but he's a really big one. And if he can be as dynamic as he flashed in summer league, he also had a lot of weird ankle injuries that he just kept picking up. And you know this, playing ball a little bit, like you roll that ankle the first time, it's just a lot easier to roll it again. So his durability is a question mark I have. And another reason why, okay, maybe the Brogdon thing is like good insurance. But that's a great analogy. And I just want to virtually pat you on the back for being like, JJ McCarthy is this team's Rob Dillingham, or vice versa.
Thank you. I think with my Twitter history, I've shown my obsession with JJ McCarthy. So I'm just praying that he lives up to the hype, because I've tweeted like 10 times, like, save this tweet. He's going to be this. So I'm ready for the floodgates to happen with the JJ McCarthy thing. And yeah, it's just, I don't really know the point guard position. I don't know how to feel. Are we happy? Are we scared? Is it a mix of everything? I don't know. How are you feeling, Kyle?
Well, and not to hammer home this point that we just made, but if JJ McCarthy is the long-term answer, but short-term just not good, what do the Vikings do? And I think that might be what the Timberwolves are facing. And again, we don't know. We haven't really seen him much. We're not at practice all the time. But if Rob Dillingham, if someone would tell you, like a wizard, right? Or a fortune teller, like, hey, Rob Dillingham's gonna be really good, but it might not be till he's like 22. Well, what do you do right now? Like, okay, well, we're pretty much set up to try to win games right now. I think it is just a really fine line to walk for both Chris Finch and Tim Connolly. But I'm also just at the point too where I've seen enough of a current. That's why I'm anti running it back. Like Mike Conley is a really important player, not only in that locker room, but in stints. He's really smart. He hits big shots. But over an 82 game season, I don't think he should be playing more than 20 minutes. I don't think he should be playing more than 50 games. You do need to take the training wheels off the guy that you invested in. And if you know behind the scenes, and I don't think this is true, but if you did know that, hey, maybe Rob's not the guy, then you probably need to get out from under that sooner than later. They've made no indication, right? Again, going back to the draft, no guard was acquired by them in the draft. They seem pretty comfortable there. So again, I think it's kind of time. I have some friends who have kids who are starting to like go into swimming classes. And apparently what you'd kind of do, and don't quote me on this, I don't want to get in trouble, but you just kind of throw the baby in the pool. And like they're naturally like the human sense of like turning their head around so they don't drown is what helps them learn how to swim and survive in the water. That might be what you do with Rob Dillingham, man. Just throw the baby in the deep end and see if he can tread water. Don't take that as parenting advice, by the way. Like you and I don't have kids, so I don't know if that's exactly what we're supposed to do with babies, but I have heard that is a technique to get kids up to speed with swimming. So
I don't have a kid, but I do have a bulldog, and he accidentally slipped in the pool last year, and I think I got PTSD from him trying to swim. So I'll take that into account long term with throwing the baby in the pool, because the bulldog in the pool not only does he make a big splash because he's like 80 pounds of dead weight, but it did not go well. So I didn't throw him in the pool, people. Trust me, I'm not crazy. He slipped in the pool, I promise. But
yeah, there's like 70-pound difference between that baby that gets thrown in and your bulldog. But I'm glad the bulldog. What's the bulldog's name, by the way?
His name's Tommy Boy.
Okay, good dog name.
Thank you. It's the I'm sure you remember that movie.
Oh yeah.
We got
good
a little
dog name. Proud of you.
Thank you. He's got a little coat too. He's got this vest that's a little too small for him now. So we're gonna get him a bigger one, as he's growing up fast. He's growing up really fast. So yeah, Tommy, he's not a good swimmer, but he's good at a lot of things. And yeah, I want to hammer one more point at the point guard position before we transition. I want to like briefly like reflect on the cat trade, then we'll close out with the owners for the last little part of the show. I think one thing we learned with the Minnesota Timberwolves last year is that the expectations or just the needs for a point guard is not that much. I mean, Mike Conley, we saw last year, he didn't have a great year. He shot 38% from two. He was struggling with not turnovers. He was struggling making threes half the year. Post January, he was great. But despite all of that, he was always near the top on the team in plus minus. Like the Jace Frederick tweets were always shocking me when he kept mentioning like Mike Conley's like near the top of the team in turnovers or in plus minus. And I don't think that was a Mike Conley is like this great player still. I think it as simple was this team is dying for a point guard who can just set the table. It doesn't even have to be that good. If you can just do it at a passing level, D for done, like they say in Tommy Boy, by the way. But if you can do that, then you're valuable. If Rob Dillingham can just take care of the basketball, if they get a veteran who could take care of the basketball, and Dillingham can also add the dynamic juice that we drafted him for number 8 overall, I think Rob Dillingham is going to have a ridiculously good second season. But if he just does the simple things right, which is a lot for a young player, that's going to be the necessary step forward for him.
Yeah, I think it's pretty clear now. Again, I've always been pro Chris Finch, and I think the facts and the record and the playoff success show that he's the best coach in franchise history, just, up there with the great Flip Saunders. But I also think Finchy is just a little conservative, and that has played out pretty well. Again, like this team just makes the playoffs and wins a lot of games under Chris Finch. But I'm also to the point now, and this is really hard for like me, and I would imagine you to kind of navigate. But if you could, again, going back to the wizard fortune teller thing, say, hey, this team isn't going to make a big splash this summer. They're going to run back Rob and Mike and a little Dante at the point, and they're going to make the Western Conference Finals again and lose in 5. I think at that point, despite I've always been, hey, this franchise has been a dumpster fire for so long, like winning games is fun. I don't know if I'd love that. And I think that's what a lot of
Mhm.
fans feel right now of I'm agreeing with you while also disagreeing, if that makes
Okay.
sense of like
Yeah.
Mike Conley is a good floor and you throw a little more Rob in there. And it's like, hey, we don't need too much from this really talented roster to probably finish in the top 6 again next year in a Western Conference again that I think at the top got stronger, but I think in the middle has just kind of floundered. But to the conservatism part, if I'm Finch, hey, it's kind of like the mystery box of the boat. I know Mike can probably get you again to a top 6 seed, but do you
Mhm.
have any chance whatsoever? I mean, Mike Conley, it wasn't just Julius or Nas or basically everyone, Jaden too, that struggled against OKC. It was the fact that Mike just couldn't really get downhill. And when the ball swung to him, can he hit a shot? Probably, but can he get in the paint and make the defense pay for kind of overloading on Anthony Edwards? That is the thing we need to figure out. Can the point guard of the Minnesota Timberwolves, as Ant enters his prime, take heat and defensive pressure off of their best player? And right now, I don't know if they have that guy or if that guy is ready to do that on this team.
Yes, and I totally agree. And by the way, for the crowd, my camera keeps flashing out today. I'm
We're
not sure
making it
why.
work.
Yeah, we're making it work. I'm going to the Apple Store right after anyway, so I might as well buy some new chargers to connect the camera to the phone. But I totally agree with your point, and I love that what you added to the idea of we don't need a lot from a point guard. I think that the floor of a conservative point guard on this team is really high.
Mhm.
But if you can add that with some dynamic juice off the dribble
Right.
between what Rob Dillingham can do and maybe I'm starting to build on the Malcolm Brogdon idea, those type of players. If you can get that balance of efficiency, but also a dynamic play, I think that makes a huge difference on this team. And that's why the young players are so critical because Terrence Shannon, Rob Dillingham, theoretically, these are more guys who could put the ball on the floor.
Mhm.
And that's what, at the end of the day, killed us against Oklahoma City because we couldn't put the ball on the floor. And they have all of these guys who can swarm on you in the perimeter from the half court. And our guards just didn't know what to do about that. If you can just match their physicality, match their speed with the ball, which Rob Dillingham and Terrence Shannon we hope can do, I think that would be the growth that this team needs. And that should be a reason for optimism because a lot of things that we need that could be delivered by the young players if they live up to expectations.
Yeah, and I think it's a bad idea to try to build your team to beat one team. It's like I don't think Tim Conley and that staff are trying to build a roster to beat OKC. I think you do need to figure out like was there a trend that we saw in the finals because OKC had a lot of problems. They ultimately won it, but they had a lot of problems because their opponent Indiana just had a ton of guards that
Mhm.
could just, as you just said, put pressure on their defense, get to the rim, create for others. It wasn't just Halliburton who, I mean, for most of that series kind of struggled, that calf injury, and then ultimately that devastating Achilles tear. But the Nemharts of the world, the Matherins, all these other guys, like obviously our guy TJ McConnell, like they just kept bringing in more and more guards to switch it up and give different looks. The Wolves have kind of the opposite of Indiana's roster, right? They have a ton of bigs, and outside of their star guard, not a lot of guards that are ready. Obviously, Dante again is kind of the wild card in this. I don't think he would feel super proud of his year last year, and I think the trade really caught him off guard, and it took him a while to get set. Then he had that injury, but if you just get a more New York Knicks version of Dante this year, I think that also changes a lot too. But I don't want Dante to have to run point. I didn't want Nikhil to run point. I want a real point guard. So yeah, if you and I could just fuse what Mike Conley knows as a floor general with what Rob Dillingham brings as a really dynamic kind of shifty 19, 20-year-old, that's your perfect point guard. And I think that's why Mike is still here. Did you know that Mike has like a no trade clause? So I don't really think, as I was looking that up today, I think that just ties into his veteran status. And I don't know how that all works. But so yeah, I don't know if Mike is going to be any asset dangled this summer, but
Mhm.
they need those two guys in that position. I know we've rambled for 40 minutes now, but the point guard position to me is kind of sink or swim. Without a strong point guard, I still think this team can avoid the play-in. But without a strong point guard, I don't know how you beat what has now become like a pretty big three in the West of OKC, Houston, and Denver. You need a running mate for Anthony Edwards. And right now, as we record on July 1st, I don't know who that is.